welcome to Gosroth Tutorials. I'm Gosroth, and today we're going to look at how we can change the visibility of panels, how we can change image source bindings in TypeScript, and how we can pass command parameters from Noesis into TypeScript. And this is what we'll be creating today. Interact with our Noesis panel. We have this, says this is panel 1, and we have a button. So when we click on this button, it's going to change the visibility of our first panel to invisible and our second panel to visible. So it's like having different pages. And then we're going to be able to cycle through these images and change the image source binding in TypeScript. There seems to be a bug with the image source bindings right now. I mean, they work for me, but if I were to bring in my bot, he wouldn't see the images. And I believe it has to do with asset ownership. So if the image asset is on the public asset library, it might work. But if it's a personal asset and it's not shared with somebody, they won't be able to see it. So let's go into Noesis, create a new project, navigate to wherever you're saving all your Noesis projects and create a new folder. I'm just going to call this one panel, image, and param. Copy that, open that folder, and I'm just going to call the file the same thing. We're going to create that project. We're going to create a master grid. I'm just going to call it master. We're not going to actually use this for anything. But since the page can only have one child, all of our other pages we're going to be inside this grid. So we're going to go up to element, and we're going to go to panel and layout, and I'm just going to grab two grids. These are going to be our panels. So this could be page 1, and then this could be page 2. Essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be toggling visibility on these two to switch between the panels. On page 1, we just want to have a text block and a button so we can switch to the next page. So we're just going to grab a stack panel, and we're going to go down to text, grab a text block, and we're going to go to button and just grab a regular button. So now we have our text and our button. Let's set our text to something like 250 by 250, and our button to the same, 250, 250. We're going to set our text for our text block to something different. This is panel 1, and we can increase the size of that. Go down to text format, and we're going to set our size to say 50. We're going to center it, and then we're going to add some margin. So let's go 50 along all sides, and then we can add padding, let's say like 25. That way we kind of get it centered a little bit. Now we're going to do the same thing on our button. So we're going to click on our button. We'll change the content to say next panel. We'll give it the same margins, and we can leave the padding since our text is already centered. But I do want to set the size to 50. It looks like our L is a little cut off, so we're just going to remove these paddings here. That way we can see it better. So this is all we're going to do for the first page. So the idea is when we click on this one, the visibility on page 1 will go away, and then we'll see page 2. On page 2, we'll have a text block, an image, and then 2 buttons. So we're going to add a stack panel. We can add a text block to our stack panel. We'll go down to media. We'll add an image below that. And then we're going to add another stack panel. But this time we're going to set the orientation to horizontal, and we're going to add 2 buttons. So button 1 and button 2. For this one, the text is going to say this is panel 2. We're going to set the width and height to 250, give it a 50 margin, set the padding to 25, and then we're going to increase size to 50 and make it centered. Image, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to set it to 250 on the width and height. Now for our horizontal stack panel, I want the buttons to be a little bit bigger, and I want them to be centered. But we're not going to adjust the width, but we are going to set the height to 500, and then we're going to set the margins to be only on the 2 sides. So we're going to click this little padlock here, go to 2-sided, and then put 500 on the left and right side. Now we're going to go to our first button. Now this requires a bit of math to figure out how we want to do our margins. And the reason for that is we take our width of our page. So 1920, go down to our stack panel. So our margins are 500 and 500, so that gives us a width of 920. Our buttons, we want to have a height and width of 250 for both of them. So that means that we take our width, so 920, we subtract 500, and that is the remainder of the spacing. So we would take that, we would divide it by 3, and that gives us how much room we need to have on the left of one button, in the middle of the two buttons, and on the right of the button. So that comes to about 140. So on the left side of this, we only want it to be 140, so we're going to go to individual. The left side will be 140. The right would be 70. And then we'll take this button, we'll do the same thing, but opposite. Go to individual. The left side will be 70, and the right side would be 140. So now we need to set up our data structure. So go over to data, click on the plus sign, new structure. You can name this to whatever you want. But on the right side, we're going to create some properties. We need to have one for each of our pages visibility. We need to have one for our image button, and then another one for our back and forth buttons for the visibility of the panel. And then we need to have an image source binding for our image. So let's create those. The start button, this will be panel 1 visibility. So I'll go panel 1 visibility. This will be of type string. We'll copy that and we'll duplicate that. And then we'll just change this 1 to a 2. Now we'll create our button command. So we'll add another one. This will be our panel button. And that'll be of type command. And then we'll duplicate that for another command. And this will be our image button. Now we need to create our image source. So we'll just call this image and change this to image source. Now we'll go over to our my structure, click our plus sign, and then this house with the plus to assign it to the page. And now we can start setting our bindings. So I'm just going to go on here and toggle visibility on page 2 and toggle it back on over here. We're going to click on page 1. We're going to go over to appearance under visibility, and we're going to create a new binding. This will be our page 1 visibility string. And we're going to click on our button. And then this will be under command. We'll create a new binding. And this will be our panel button. And we're going to set a command parameter. So this one's going to show the next panel. So I'm just going to go +1. Now we can work on page 2. So we're going to toggle visibility on page 1, turn it on page 2. And we're going to go down to our image. And under source, we're going to create our binding for our image. So it's going to be our image. And then we click on our other button, which is actually our last panel. Put last panel in there. I forgot to set the font size on these. And the command for this one will be our panel button, -1. And then we have our image button, which I'm just going to put image. And then for our command, that'll be our image button. We don't need a command parameter for this one. And I do want to set the size to 50. Okay, so now we have our binding set up and our data struct set up. So we can save, so Control S, and we can go back into Horizon. Let's go to My Assets, go to whatever folder you save your Noesis projects to, and we're going to create a new Noesis project. Navigate to whichever folder you save the project to, and then double click on the .noesis file. Import that, right click on it in your asset folder, and then select place. Now we're just going to do some positioning. So put a 0 on the X, 1 on the Y, we'll go 3 on the Z, and then turn it around 180 degrees so it's facing us. Click on root XAML, select main page, and since our height and width is 1920 by 1080 in the Noesis project, we're going to do the same thing here. So it'll be 1920 1080. Now this will stretch or squish if it's not a perfect square. But in order to fix that, we're going to scale. So you would take 1920, divide that by 1080 is about 1.77. So we can take our scale 1.77, and it will scale it and it'll look pretty close to what it should be. Next, we need to create the script. So we're going to click attach script. We're going to create a new Noesis UI script, and we can just call this panel image param. And I'm just going to copy that, create and attach, and then I'm going to name the Noesis panel that so I know which one it is. So once it's done loading, we're going to edit that script. A lot of this we're just going to delete. I'm just going to leave the start function, but all this can go bye-bye. First thing we're going to do is create the data context. So it'd be private data context. And that's going to equal curly brackets, and we're going to put in all of the data bindings that we created. So an easy way to do this is opening up the Noesis project, go to your My Structure, and then just double click on these and copy and paste them in here. Panel 1 visibility is of type string, so it will be string variable. And if you want it to be visible, we have to type in the word visible. Don't forget the comma at the end. And if you don't want it visible, you will use the word collapsed. Now for our buttons, to set up the method, we're going to do some rounded brackets, and we're going to do an arrow function and have that call a different method. So it'll be this dot panel button pressed. And since this one is actually using a command parameter, we can get that. And they come as strings. So we're going to just say value, and it's going to be of type string. And then we'll pass along value to our button press event. So we're just going to copy panel button press, bring it down here, and require that string value. For our image button, we're not actually getting any parameters, so we don't need to worry about that. We still need to do our arrow function, and it'll be this dot image button pressed. And we can create the method for that. The image is going to be of type image source, so we do need to import that from the Horizon UI. So we're just going to go over here, and we're going to import image source from Horizon UI. And if you get any errors for this, just make sure you have the UI API toggled on in the script settings. All right, for our image, we'll go colon image source from texture asset. Then we go new texture asset, and we're going to use a big int. So big int, and it will be the string value of the asset ID. And the asset ID I'm going to use is the one that I showed you before. So this is just going to be the default one. We are getting an error for our texture asset because we're not importing that. That comes from Horizon Core. So we'll just add that up there, and now our error is gone and our data context is set up. Next, we're going to create a couple private variables, and we're going to go private active player of type player or undefined. Import player, and we're going to need a private variable for our page number, and that'll be of type number, and we'll set that to 1. We do need to have a reference for all of our texture assets that we want to use, so we're going to create a bunch now. So it'll be private image 1 of type image source, and we're just going to have it set to this. And I'm going to do this 6 more times, so I'm just going to copy and paste them over. We want to create an array for all our images, so we're going to go private image array of type image source, and then we're going to set them to all of these images. And last, we need to create an index variable that we can update. So private image index type number, we'll set it to 0. So in start, we're going to set this dot active player to this dot world dot get local player, and then we're going to make sure that the local player is not the server player. So if this dot active player does not equal this dot world dot get server player, So if it's not the server player, this dot entity dot as Noesis gizmo dot data context equals this dot data context. Now let's set up our button pressed method. This dot page number plus equals parse int, and then we're going to pass in the value. And now we can do some checks. So if this dot page number equals 1, this dot data context dot panel 1 visibility, and we're going to set that to visible. And then we're going to go this dot data context dot panel 2 visibility equals collapsed. Else, if it's 2, we're going to do the same thing but in reverse. This dot data context dot panel 1 visibility equals collapsed, and this dot data context dot panel 2 visibility equals visible. So next, let's look at our image button pressed. This dot image index equals this dot image index plus 1. So we're increasing it plus 1, and then we are using modulus this dot image array length. Next, we want to update the data context. So it'll be this dot data context dot image, and it'll equal the image array using the new image index. So now we can cycle through our images. However, there's still an issue with loading of the images. The first time it'll take a very long time. So what I like to do is I like to preload them. So in start, we're going to create a new method, and it's going to be this dot preload images, and then we'll create that method down here. So it'll be this dot image array dot for each. We get our image variable. We close that off, and inside here we're just going to set the data context. So this dot data context dot image equals image. And then I want to make sure that that data context is set to the initial image index. So we'll just go this dot data context dot image equals this dot image array using the default index. We save that, go back into Horizon, click on next panel, we get our next panel. Last panel, we go back to the first one. And then if we click on our image, they do cycle through all the images and back to the beginning and so on and so forth. This is all I have for today's video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about the video, or have any suggestions for a future video, please let me know in the comment section below. If you liked the video, if you learned something, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you're notified of all my future videos. And yeah, thanks for watching and have a good one.